Hi, everyone. I'm Ricky Grove, and this is a Now for Something Completely Machinima podcast. Welcome. We have Tracy Harwood as a guest, Damien Valentine, and Phil Rice, our regular. Hello, everybody.
Hi.
Hello.
Hey there.
Well, we had such a good time talking about our last film. We have a new one, my pick. By the way, you can. This is our third season. You can check our films out or our podcast out at completelyMachinima.com. Now, my pick is an interesting one. At least to me, I was rooting around and trying to find new films, and I came across, as you usually do when you're doing internet searches, you end up following little paths that take you down to cubby holes. And this led me to a place that was sharing a lot of Team Fortress 2 game-based machinima using the old source filmmaker. And I came across this Team Fortress 2 law-abiding engineer. And what it is, it's a composited machinima, which is a very interesting idea, which is they take Team Fortress 2 characters and they composite them into a trailer of a film called Law Abiding Citizen. And they substitute citizen for the engineer character. And they've done this thing so effectively that even today, it was made 12 years ago. And the film was in 2009, which was a big hit. Everybody loved it. And it was made in the old source filmmaker, which is just impossible. I mean, it has a learning curve like Everest. If you've ever tried to work in the source filmmaker, it's just impossible. Even the documentation is impossible. But anyway, they did such a great job that I had to pick it to share it with you guys. What I liked about it is it's very funny. It's also very well crafted and quite an interesting idea. In short, the compositing is not an easy thing to do, especially blending the lighting, because you're putting 2D characters in a live action environment. And they did the lighting and color compositing so well that the characters fit right in. I was so impressed with it and just laughed out loud. TrueOneMoreUser is the creator, and he has several other interesting films. One I've done a special mention of called Team Fortress 2 Demoman by Pwnage, which we're going to talk about afterwards. It's not quite as good as Law Abiding Engineer, but it's quite funny. What did you guys think of the film?
Well, I love the throwback to Team Fortress 2, which I thought it stood up surprisingly well after 12 years.
Yes.
I mean, that was 12 years. You would never know that, really. It's obviously a trailer, and these characters are kind of superimposed. You've got Gerard Butler as the engineer character. You got Jamie Foxx as spy, and there's a whole bunch of TF2 character aspects that actually I don't know the name of, but there were loads of them. It wasn't just the engineer. There was quite a few, I think. And obviously you've got the voice acting, which is absolutely, it's just from the film, so it's great. It's just from the original trailer. But what I think is really good about this is the way that the character positions are exactly the same as the characters in the original trailer. And so clearly what this guy has done is tried to find character poses in TF2 and then just sort of cut away the background, I guess.
Composite.
Composite, okay, but this I think was done pre-source filmmaker, which came out in 2012. Although maybe that's not completely true, because I think it was also leaked in 2007 as a beta release of TF2.
No, I think you're right. You're absolutely right. I think you're right. It
So,
came out before Source Filmmaker.
Yeah. Now, I think I mentioned that because there's actually quite a lot of comments on the video that seem to suggest that Source was used, but I don't think it was, although I'm not really sure. And according to the creator, it was made using Max, Adobe After Effects, Photoshop, and Premiere. So I think there's quite a lot of skill in the layering up here.
Yes.
But I think there's also something else, which is the detail that of what he's gone into. Because if you compare the original trailer of Law Abiding Citizen to this side by side, it's absolutely spot on. And in fact, so much so that the creator has even done that as well. So you've got a split screen version of this with the original trailer that's definitely worth watching, and that's on his channel too. So that I would
great.
recommend.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've
Very
I mean,
witty, funny.
We've seen shot for shot. Go ahead, Ricky.
I was just going to say that back in our first season, we did a really interesting movie that was a trailer of The Town That Dreaded Sundown by a guy who shot it in Red Dead Redemption 2. Although he didn't use the live action, he remade the trailer using the soundtrack in Red Dead Redemption 2. This is actually using the live action and compositing Team Fortress 2 characters within it, which I think is even harder.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Phil.
Yeah, we've seen, all of us, I'm sure, have seen shot by shot recreations of trailers using various technologies and stuff. This is like Tracy said, it's a whole other level because it's shot for shot, angle per angle, position per position. I mean, it's just about flawless. Really, really a lot of attention to detail to it. A lot of fun to watch. There's those Team Fortress characters. They really that it's almost like a 3D version of Dragon's Lair. You remember Dragon's Lair animation?
Yeah.
They've got that kind of vibrant, lively. It's cartoonish, and yet there's more depth to them and stuff. As far as what it was made with, maybe it wasn't called Source Filmmaker at the time, but there were tools that let you make films in those Source Engine games, particularly Half-Life 2, like what Paul Marino used for Still Seeing
Brain, right?
Face Poser, was that what it was called at the time? Was it called Face Poser?
Oh, okay.
Something like that. And there was a tool for that where you could pull up a character from one of the games. Most people did it with the G-Man. And then you could sequence animation of however they were rigged, animation and lip sync and all of that. It was very primitive. It was, like Ricky remembers, it was very hard to work with, but people did it. So I'm wondering if it seems likely to me that these shots were with some kind of tool like that rather than from within the actual game of Team Fortress, because that would be a lot harder to arrange the background for compositing. It'd be a lot harder to arrange that in the game. Whereas if you were able to bring it into that tool, I believe you could just load up whatever image behind them and then adjust the angle of the camera and everything to get it right and sequence the movements and reactions and all of that. So I think that tool was called Face Poser, but it's once Source Filmmaker came along, they abandoned the terminology for all that, and that's just what it was.
Well,
but those tools existed long before it was packaged as such.
Yeah. Right. That's a good point. If they had, say, for example, a white background in Face Poser, they could easily use something called chroma key in any major video filmmaker, in which you choose the color that you're going to remove. Yeah. And it just removes that color, and then you composite, you put whatever background you want on it. In this case, he used the trailer background.
Right.
The other method, if you're going to shoot it in game, would be extremely tedious, because you would have to remove the background for every single cell in 24 frames, every frame, 24 frames a second. And even in that short period of time, you're still talking about hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of cells. So I don't think he did that technique.
Oh yeah, I think it was shot over the composited background, probably green or blue. I mean, white's tough to deal with because then you've got the whites in people's eyes, and with the engineer, he's got a little bit of white t-shirt showing, and black is really tough because then it's the shadows. So there was probably some kind of a way to put some kind of a solid color, one of the traditional a solid green or solid blue, and that face poser tool, I'm pretty sure you could engineer lighting and things like that to create the animations. I think Paul Marino in his Still Seeing Breen, there's a significant amount of compositing that he used there. That he used that face poser tool. I'm pretty sure it was called now. For the Breen character that was
right.
If I remember right, was lip syncing the words, right? And there was Half-Life 2 behind him.
Right.
Yeah. So that's probably what it was done. It's rare to see that so well done, because to merge that footage with this live action thing, matching up that lighting and all that.
Lighting, and color too.
That's some real skill there.
The color tone on the Team Fortress characters are nothing like the color tone of a realistic live action film. So it took a lot of work.
Yeah.
Did you guys find it as funny as I did? I thought it was extremely funny.
I had to watch it more than once just to appreciate the humor behind it, because it's kind of fun to watch it, but you need to watch it again and to really absorb it, and you get more of the humor of it, because that it's done with machinery. You know what to expect, so you can appreciate the joke behind it. And as has already been commented, it's really well done, because Phil, you said we've all seen shot for shot recreations of things, and that's usually the entire scene. So if the head's slightly off, it doesn't matter that much, because you still get the gist of it. This has to be perfect, or it doesn't work, because you see the original one behind.
That's right.
Yeah, but
I found it very funny too. Yeah. Very
I almost wanted to see the whole film with Team Fortress characters.
Now, I really enjoyed also in that collection of Team Fortress 2 machinima, which we'll put a link on in our show notes for it. I also found an interesting film called Demoman by Pwnage. It's a short film. It has very, very funny voice acting, excellent voice acting, very foul language film. It has that perfect blend of what I like in classic machinima, the low budget, fast and fun. I won't define what fun is. If you don't know what it is, then there's no reason to define it. The group has been around for over a decade. They produce humorous live action shorts as well. Pwnage is a great site. Very, very funny stuff. Irreverent, rude, crude, raunchy. I liked it a lot. Did any of you get a chance to watch it?
I did.
Yeah.
I've seen Is it Pwnage? Is that how you pronounce it? But I watched them back in the day. I hadn't seen this before. I got to be honest with you. This film didn't. I kind of watched it with like a smile and a nod. It didn't make me laugh until the very last line.
Yeah, me too.
And I just lost it. Oh, great.
Yeah.
I'm almost glad that I wasn't laughing at the rest of it, because that just hit me like a Tyson punch.
I almost spattered my screen with water at that point.
Not woke. Deliciously not woke. Wonderful. Wonderful.
Now this is a more traditional machinima film. It's not a composited work in a trailer. It's an actual machinima film shot inside of Team Fortress 2 classic. And it follows the kind of break room storytelling of one character to another about all of the crazy adventures that they've gone to, done in this sort of Afro-American style, of quick and fast and irreverent. I just thought it was funny, and you're right, that last piece was just absolutely hilarious. Yeah. The energy of it too is very exciting. I was glad to see a machinima film that had such great energy that was reflected in the cutting and in the angles and in the expressions. And you're right, Phil, those TF2 characters are so very expressive, especially for comedy. What did you think, Damien?
I like Phil. I enjoyed it, and I did chuckle a few of the times way through it, and I enjoyed the energy to it, because you don't see that a lot, even in this kind of machinima where it's kind of making fun of the game. just to find that amount of energy in the narration of it, that was really good. But there's that last line, which I'm not going to spoil it. I think you have to watch it. I just, I'm glad that was the end because I had to pause it because I was laughing so much.
Yeah.
I went back and watched all the way again. I enjoyed it on the second time more because I knew that was coming and it adds something to it. But it's the perfect length as well because it's too short it just wouldn't have worked. But any longer it would have been too long. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I have to admit I've not seen too much Team Fortress Machinima, so it's nice to go back and revisit something that's made. This is 15 years ago, I believe.
Well,
yeah, okay.
No, this was 2007. This one.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, 15 years.
It doesn't look like a game that was made 15 years ago. If you watch some Machinima from 15 years ago, it looks like it was made 15 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
This looks like it could have been made, today.
Yeah.
And it's got because the Team Fortress characters are stylized, so they don't age.
Gives them a timelessness, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And because the animation is very fluid as well, they don't have that. What we were talking about last week about Movie Storm. Movie Storm looks dated because the character's animation is the way it is, but with Team Fortress, the animation is so good it doesn't look dated either. And and the humor of it is really funny. So I enjoyed it. It's a good pick.
I wonder if anybody is still working with Source Filmmaker, the current version. I think it's from Half-Life 2 Source Filmmaker. I think that was the last one that was put out.
Probably because Valve,
yes, they are.
Valve hasn't discovered the number 3, so people are still fans of their second games on those various series they've done. So
my son actually came in the other day. He's just this past month played through Half-Life 2 for the first time. He got it on some kind of special and he played through all the episodes. So he comes in, sits on the couch the other night. He goes, yeah. So they say that they're making Half-Life 3. That gave me laughing at the last line of this movie. It's like, oh, my son, you have a lot to learn.
Yes. If anybody is listening, and you are a Source Filmmaker or you know about Source Filmmaker films, please contact us at talk@completely.com. We'd love to hear more about it. Tracy, you had something you wanted to say?
Yeah, I was going to say I did a little bit of digging around. Because I thought this was a lot of fun, and I have to say I'd forgotten about Team Fortress 2, really. And the channel, it kind of reminded me. It kind of reminded me that there were these other sort of gamer communities which kind of existed at the same time we were looking at loads of other stuff, but I'd kind of not followed it as well. So I was quite surprised to see the date of this one as well, November 2007.
Yes.
Which, was at the same time that I was doing the European Machinima Festival. So this one really kind of passed me by as a community. So I never really knew all that much about it. But I started looking at it because I was kind of curious about what that was all about. And what I found was that, Valve ran an annual contest, which I did know about, called the Saxxy Awards. I don't know if you remember that.
Yes.
And it was, it was really quite significant. There were a huge number of awards for themed content from basically everything from comedy to drama and anything in between. But it was kind of designed for that community, primarily Team Fortress 2. But I believe also other engines were then included a little bit later on. And Valve actually ran that contest between 2011 and 2017. So it's sort of towards the back end that we were doing the Machinima festivals, but then ran on to 2017. I didn't know it ran that long. But it was actually between the first and the second contest that they actually formally released Source Filmmaker. And that's basically how they encouraged this kind of massive growth in machinima during that sort of period. Because anything that went into one of those Saxxy contests had to be entered using Source. so then, come 2007, it didn't run, but then it briefly also got picked up again in 2021 by members of the Source community, apparently because Valve didn't want to run the contest again. So as far as I understand, it's, the Saxxys has kind of sort of gone by the wayside, but there's still quite an active community working in Source and thinking about how they can engage with the community. I understand the 21 contest didn't have that many entries, although it was in the end supported by Valve on the side, which I think is quite interesting.
Yeah.
And it kind of, those sort of machinima communities, particularly this group of folks, I think I was really quite fascinated to read that what Valve would do with the main Saxxy Award winner was fly them into their headquarters and give them a session with its filmmakers, which I thought that's really lovely, isn't it? To sort of do that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
But that had all kind of passed me by a little bit. But there are awards pages for all those films that sort of went in, that were awarded a Saxxy. And actually, Phil, believe it or not, your pick next week is also a guy that was part of that community. He was one of the winners of a Saxxy Award.
Oh wow!
Which I think is a really interesting connection between, Team Fortress and all these other things, because the connection is actually the fact that they ran on the Source engine, which I think is quite interesting, and that's how come Valve used to open the awards up to other creators.
Cool. We should make sure we have a link for the Saxxy Award for those people who want to follow it up.
Yeah, but I will. The other thing I'll say is that actually, and again to my point last week about the Unreal trajectory, Source pretty much has the same outgrowth trajectory that as Unreal Engine does have. But I think the key difference here is that it has a connection back into the game. And that's because the Saxxys are actually virtual assets that have to be used inside Team Fortress 2. So they're actually in-game weapons. So it actually takes you back into the game rather than Unreal, which has kind of now got this, this vision for this tool set to be something well beyond the game origins. Source just never went there.
Yeah.
Apparently. So I think what these two films you've picked, Ricky, are they demonstrate to me a kind of bygone creative era, but one that has been hugely influential in the development of contemporary tools. And I don't think the creative practice that you see in these films has aged that much, actually, or changed that much even, but I think the tool sets definitely have. So my conclusion, looking at this and then reflecting on what we talked about last week, is that I think it's really up to creators to think very carefully about how the game relates to the creative process. Because I do think Team Fortress and games like it have a huge future with this sort of thing. It's just how it's embedded in the process that's kind of missing a little bit at the moment.
Yeah. Well, that's a very, very good point, Tracy. And I think, it's well worth thinking about even some more. But I think modern games coming out at a time in which machinima was not such a high interest level in our culture makes them less interested in providing tools for machinima filmmakers. Back in the day, Source was right in the middle, or Valve was right in the middle of the whole machinima peak. And of course they wanted to get involved in it. So it's a bit of a shame that there aren't more game companies. Like I'm talking about you, Elden Ring. You, rather than having a modder come up with a mod which you have to pay monthly to use, which just still galls the hell out of me. They should have done it themselves. They should have provided a tool to be able to tell stories because the rise of open world gaming is so fascinating, and the ways that you interact and the complexities of the different environments is perfect. I mean, I could see Hugh Hancock slavering over Elden Ring about all of its different locations and places and environments and characters. Boy, you could come up with something incredibly Lovecraftian in that environment. So it's a little disappointing that game companies aren't really helping with tools like that. And you're right, it's sort of a bygone era with Valve and Source Filmmaker and Team Fortress Classic, one that has really influenced our modern tool approach. Well, if that's it, we're going to call this session done. Turn it over like a pancake and serve it. Put some maple syrup on top and have a big old bite. I have no idea where that analogy came from, but I just went with it.
Well, I can tell you I want pancakes now.
There you go. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and thanks for your good comments. A link to the film T-Fortress 2 Law-Abiding Engineer will be on our website. Please make sure you watch it. It's a very funny and interesting film, and I'm glad all of you enjoyed it as well. Contact us if you have anything you'd like to share. Talk at completelyMachinima.com. Check our show notes at completelyMachinima.com, and also our news, which Tracy has been running primarily on our blog, has some really, really interesting stuff there. So thank you all for sharing your thoughts with us and for listening to us and watching to us today. And we'll see you next week with a new film. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.